Hey, thanks for joining again. So in this video, I want to bring up operant versus respondent conditioning, which I think is a very important part of ABA. So I found this dialogue here that was written in the, once again, Applied Behavior Analysis book. And I found it very interesting, so I'm going to read it. I think it'll take a couple minutes here, so just bear with me as I go through this, and I'll try to make it as entertaining as possible. The professor was ready to move on to his next point, but a raised hand in the front row caught his attention. Professor: Yes? Student: You say that operant behavior, like talking, writing, running, reading, driving a car, most everything we do, you say all of those behaviors are controlled by their consequences, by things that happen after the response was emitted. Professor: Yes, I said that, yes. Student: Well, I have a hard time with that. When my telephone rings and I pick up the receiver, that's an operant response, right? I mean, answering the phone when it rings certainly didn't evolve genetically as a reflex to help our species survive. So we are talking about operant behavior, correct? Professor: Correct. Student: All right then. How can we say that my picking up my telephone is controlled by its consequence? I pick up the phone because it is ringing. So does everybody else. Ringing controls the response, and ringing can't be a consequence because it comes before the response. The professor hesitated with his reply just long enough for the student to believe himself the hero, nailing a professor for pontificating about some theoretical concept with little or no relevance to the everyday real world. Simultaneously sensing victory, other students began to pile on with their comments. Another student: How about stepping on the brake when you see a stop sign? The sign controls the braking response, and that's not a consequence either. A student from the back of the room: And take a common classroom example. When a kid sees the problem 2 plus 2 on his worksheet and he writes 4, the response of writing 4 has to be controlled by the written problem itself. Otherwise, how could anyone learn the correct answers to any question or problem? Most of the class: Yeah, that's right. Professor, with a wry smile: All of you are correct. So too am I. Someone else in the class: What do you mean? Professor: That was exactly my next point, and I was hoping you would pick up on it. The professor smiled a thank you at the student who had started the discussion and went on. All around us, every day, we are exposed to thousands of changing stimulus conditions. All of the situations you've described are excellent examples of what behavior analysts call stimulus control. When the frequency of a given behavior is higher in the presence of a given stimulus than when the stimulus is absent, we say that stimulus control is at work. Stimulus control is a very important and useful principle in behavior analysis, and it will be the subject of much discussion this semester. And here's the important point: a discriminative stimulus, the antecedent event that comes before the response of interest, acquires its ability to control a particular response class because it has been associated with certain consequences in the past. So, it is not just the sound of the phone's ring that causes you to pick up the receiver. It is the fact that in the past, answering the phone, when it was ringing, was followed by a person's voice. It's that person talking to you, the consequence of picking up the receiver, that really controlled the behavior in the first place. But you pick up the phone only when you hear it ringing. Why? because you have learned that there's someone on the other end only when the phone's ringing. So we can still speak of consequences as having the ultimate control in terms of controlling operant behavior. But by being paired with differential consequences, antecedent stimuli can indicate what kind of consequence is likely. This concept is called the three-term contingency, and its understanding, analysis, and manipulation is central to applied behavior analysis. Nice. So that's a nice little dialogue they put in there that can help you understand response.